Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Ray Flowers breaks it all down for you from a fantasy sports perspective. Morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you might be, whenever you might be listening to this show. I am Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. Thanks for joining the crew today. Thanks for being part of what we're doing here. The Fantasy Sports Daily is Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Time. We do this free show. You can watch us all over the place. You can watch us on Twitter X at Fantasy Guru site. You can watch us on YouTube at youtube.com/@ElitePlusNetwork. Also on Facebook, facebook.com/FantasyGuruHQ. All three of those spots you can watch us live. If you watch us either on YouTube or on Facebook, you can even leave comments, ask questions, things that we will address at the end of the show. We do that every day, so please take advantage of that. You can also go to FantasyGuru.com, click the Elite Plus tab at the top of the page. That will take you to the catalog of these shows. It'll also take you to the network where you can see the other podcasts that we have at FantasyGuru.com. And then you can also find us by just typing Fantasy Sports Daily into your local podcast network. So whether you're watching this or listening to this, thank you for joining us on the journey. The journey today, well, let's dig into it. What are we talking about today? We're talking relief pitchers. We're finishing up our 4-episode series here at the All-Star break for Major League Baseball, excuse me, of looking at sectional situations in baseball. On Monday, we had the infield. On Tuesday, we had the outfield. On Wednesday, we had starting pitcher, and today we have relief pitchers. That's what we're doing here on the show today. And these shows have an accompanying article over at FantasyGuru.com. So head over to FantasyGuru.com, get a chance to read some more data about these positions. We'll also have a link to the actual shows in the article, so you can always find it there. In fact, you might be watching it there right now. But we have more information, MVP, LVP, rookie performers, all that kind of stuff. So check that out. Those articles are free over at FantasyGuru.com. So for the next half hour or so, we're going to talk relief pitchers. There are not a lot of injuries here for pitching, and there's injuries. There's guys we could pick out, but not a lot of the big name guys went down with injuries. So that's a positive. We'll talk about performance, though, on the hill, saves leaders, sold leaders, and go through a bunch of the bullpen scenarios as well. About a half hour from now, we're going to visit with Armando Marsal. He's going to come in. He and Tyler Beaker changed up their appointments this week. Yesterday was Tyler. Today is Armando. Tomorrow is Russell Clay. So as you can see there on the screen with Armando, we're going to talk about Jordan Addison and his situation on and off the field. Kyle Pitts, Raheem Mostert, Achane, Wright, the situation in the backfield the backfield of the Dolphins, where Armando lives in Florida. Darnell, Mooney, Rondale, Moore, Curtis Samuel, Van Jefferson, Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, and Tank Dell. So we'll look at a lot of wide receivers as well as some other situations. That starts in about a half hour with him. Don't forget, you can go to FantasyGuru.com right now. Head over to FG.com. What do you do if you head over there? You have a lot of success getting the package, if I could figure out the right way to push the buttons. Getting the football package, click the subscribe tab in the top right corner. You can sign up for the seasonal football, the DFS football, or the wagering football. They're all three packages are available. You can sign up for all three in one if you want to bundle them together. And then you can also get the VIP Platinum, which gets you every sport, every article, everything that we do. You can do that as well. The football product is rocking and rolling. And I say it every day. If you want rankings, we got them. PPR, non-PPR, rookie dynasty, best ball. We've got they're everywhere, right? We've got a draft guide section talking about dynasty leagues. We've got a draft guide section talking about best ball. We will soon have a draft guide section talking about wagering. We're also going to have in a couple of weeks a auction portion. I just wrote 3 articles. It'll be up there. I know Justin Fensterman is doing some things. So we have these mini guides within the overall guide. You get access to all of that if you get the seasonal package. We call it a guide. It's the full season. You get from now through the end of the season. You get all the articles. You get access to the live stream. You get access to Discord to ask questions. Now, you ask questions in week 4, week 12, in the championship, whatever it might be, all throughout the season. You get access to that. Click the subscribe tab in the top right corner of the page. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the bullpen here. And we got to start off with Edwin Diaz. And, this is not... Everyone makes a decision on how they want to build their team. And by the way, if you can't see, that's Josh Hader when he used to be on the Brewers behind me. Look at that hair. I'm jealous. A little jealous there. Everyone makes a decision how they want to handle bullpens. And no matter what decision you make, going early on relievers, going in the middle on relievers, going late on the relievers, no matter what position you take. Any one of the three can be a bust. Any one of the three can be a hit. I've said all along for years now, and especially very vociferously this season, the idea of spending a third or fourth round draft pick, which is what people were doing on guys like Edwin Diaz and Josh Hader, was just not smart. And in the case of Diaz, it was doubly not smart, as I say, not smart things, to take a guy that I know it was his knee, but he missed a whole season. This year, he's been in and out. He's been completely ineffective. He's been in and out of the lineup because of injury. And it's not that, am I surprised that he's struggled a little bit? I'm not. And I don't think anyone else should be. Same time, he's got a 34% strikeout rate, which is pretty damn good. It's off his 40% career mark. His walk rate right now would be a 3-year high. His home run rate would be a 4-year high. And right now, your third, fourth round pick has got 10 saves. 10. So hopefully this is a teachable moment that, and again, Diaz only pitched 27 games. He's missed some time with injury, even again this year. But for the most part, he's just been ineffective based upon expectations. If he was your 22nd round pick, cool. Your fourth round pick got 10 saves. Be very cautious next season with the with the relievers early. I don't get it. I've never got it. I've never understood it. People say, well, you got to lock that first guy down. You thought you locked it down with Devin Diaz. He's on pace for 19 saves or 17 saves. Like, don't do it, folks. Just don't do it. David Bednar was spectacular last season. I think everyone basically expected him to pull back this year, and he has. Now he's got 17 saves. He's 17 for 20, which is a very good 85% success rate. His ERA is over 5. He had a bunch of really rough outings, and his strikeout rate is down based upon the last 2 years and based upon expectations. And he's dealt with injury a little bit early, a little bit late. He's back out there now. He hasn't been a blowout, obviously, because he's got 17 saves and he's healthy at the moment. But he's dealt with some woes pitching, and especially at the start of the season. And then health has been kind of wonky. If he gets you 30 saves, you're still going to be happy with that, I would assume, even if the ERA is elevated. But moderately successful today. You've got the 17 saves. 5 ERA, 1.16 whip. We're hoping for better there. Jordan Romano, I don't remember the last time I actually had Jordan Romano on a team. He has had the last 2 years 36 saves and 36 saves. This year he's got 8, and it's bad. He's got an issue with his elbow. He was dealing with it. Then they tried it and it didn't work. So then they shut him down, and then they tried it. It didn't work. And they ultimately decided to have surgery on his elbow. He had surgery, 15 days ago. He's expected to miss 6 weeks. So he's going to miss at least half of the rest of the season, basically, I would assume. That's if everything goes well. And things have not gone really well to date. So the bottom line is he's got 8 saves. It would take a miracle for him to get to 20. Even getting to 15 is probably not happening. And again, he had 36 each of the last 2 years. He's only pitched 13 innings. So he's one of the few guys that has flamed out because of health. And I will say this, that's pretty, we haven't had as much turnover at the relief spot as we've had in years past. Maybe this occurs in the second half. We've had good performers. We've had poor performers. We haven't had a lot of flameouts, which is a little bit different. We haven't had a ton of injuries, which is also a little bit different. We have had injuries. We'll talk Devin Williams later too. We have had injuries. Jhoan, Duran missed time. There's been injuries, but there haven't been a lot of blowouts. And it's starting to look like Romano is going to be one of those guys that blows out. 13 innings pitched, 8 saves, well beyond the halfway point for the former closer of the Blue Jays. By the way, I should say this. I just updated the closer grid over at fantasyguru.com. So if anyone's wondering, well, who's the next guy up? What are these teams doing? It's like a week old. And obviously there's no games right now. So check it out. Go over to fantasyguru.com. Click at the top, at the top of the page. You go over there, you hover over seasonal, you go down to articles, you find bullpens, boom, you're off and running. Let's talk about some of the performances here. And we'll start I guess I should just do this generically speaking and talk about the saves leaders. Ryan Helsley, who's the first guy who's listed there, leads baseball with 32 saves. If he struggles, he gets 40 saves, right? Like there's an outside chance he gets 50 saves this year. Phenomenal work from him. And, there's been periods of time where he hasn't pitched and there's been whispers, is he hurt? Is he dealing with something? Bottom line, he's got 32 saves. Okay, and he's only blown 2 opportunities. 32 for 34. He's been terrific to lead baseball. Emmanuel Clase is next up at 29. Kyle Finnegan with 25 is third. Kyle Finnegan is that 23rd round draft pick who has 25 saves. Remember, Edwin Diaz in the 4th round has 10. Saves are not a good number to record. I've talked about this forever. Holds are not a good number to record. I've talked about this forever. We will talk about solds in a second, which is what I champion. I've done it forever. I'm in the solds league in Tout Wars. So we'll talk about that in a second. We'll continue to go through some of the leaders here before breaking guys down individually. Craig Kimbrel's 23 saves. Robert Suarez out of nowhere, 22. Razo Iglesias, 22. 21 for Clay Holmes. So those are the guys with 20 saves. On the solds side of things, and you can do solds in 2 ways. One, you can say saves and holds are both worth a point, which is what I'm going to talk about here in a second. Some people say holds are stupid and you can get more than 1 hold in a game. Okay. So you can go 1 point for a save and a half a point for a hold. So you could do that if you want. But the leaders that I'm going to talk about right here, it's a point for each of them. My Tout Wars League is a point for each save and hold. The leader is still Ryan Helsley at 32. The number 2 guy is still Emmanuel Clase at 29. The number 3 guy, let's make sure I got this right. The number 3 guy, though, does get a little bit of a change. Craig Kimbrel, who has 4 holds, moves up to 3rd with 27, tied with his teammate, Yainer Cano, who also has 27. So a lot of people say, oh, Ray, we elevate the middle relievers and, it diminishes the closers. The top 3 guys are all closers, right? Then we got Cano was up next. Then we get into the middle relievers. Kittredge, Hunter Harvey, Jojo Romero, all 26. And then 25, we're back to Kyle Finnegan, right? So and then right behind him is Iglesias and Suarez. So as you can see, if you look at a leaderboard list, it's still highly populated at the top by the guys that get saves. It's amazing to think that the number 3 spot in baseball with 27 is Cano and Kimbrel, teammates. The number 4 spot with 26 is teammates again, Kittredge and Romero. And remember, the number 1 guy is Ryan Helsley. If you had done something stupid, in my opinion, and taken Helsley, Kittredge, and Romero, you'd have 3 of the top 6 guys. They're all teammates. That's wild. Obviously, there's a very stratified nature that the Cardinals use in the bullpen, and it's working. Going back to that list, Craig Kimbrel is the next guy up on the list. And Kimbrel has been he's been great, given those expectations. And as I noted, he has 4 holds. Why does he have 4 holds? Because for a while there, he was a mess. And he was demoted from the closer spot for a little bit of time. Then all of a sudden, he got back on the horse. He does have 5 blown saves, which is an elevated number. But he has 23 saves. The ERA is in the mid-2s. He's got 6 victories, which is really nice. Obviously, from a reliever, you get that nice little bonus. He has pitched as well as could have been expected. And he's well on his way to yet another 30-save season. 35. He's been really, really good. Camilo Doval of the Giants was written about, or he'll be written about in the article that will be posted today. So I won't go into great detail. There's actually some audio that I found from Mike Krukow, the former Giants pitcher, who's now a broadcaster for the team. He's not happy with Camilo Doval. So you can listen to that. Doval was my guy to get 40 saves this year. It's not going to happen. He still could easily get 30. That's certainly within the realm of possibility here. He's got, 17 saves or whatever. Yeah, he's got 17 saves. But it has not been a season as expected. He's really struggled with the walks, and there's some concerns about his attitude. So you can, again, read more about that in the article that'll be up later today. Razel Iglesias with his 22 saves. Iglesias is an interesting guy because he's been around for a while. He's not sexy. No one ever really pushes ADP to draft Iglesias. People take him, and it's like, all right. He's 22 for 24 in save conversions for the Braves. He saves 30 games every year. We can talk about some slight pullback in his profile, which is fair, but his ERA is still 2.02. Like, he's still very effective. And, he knows how to pitch. And there is something to be said for that. And, again, the idea of working the 9th inning, a lot of it comes down to, do you have your manager's trust? Obviously, Iglesias does. And so there you go. It was expected to be and has been very, very effective. Josh Hader's been very interesting because Josh Hader, again, he was another one of these players that was taken 3rd or 4th round according to ADP. He's got 18 saves. There are 9 guys that have more saves than him. So if we're judging a player based upon his save total on draft day cost, Hader has not lived up to expectations, not even close. He's pitched much better after a slow start, but his ERA is 3.9. That's not good at all. He's got 5 losses. If you're in a head-to-head, if you're in a points league, he's got 5 losses. That's terrible. He has not pitched very well. Now he's got 18 saves. He's going to get his 30 saves. Okay. Maybe there's a strong second half and he gets 35, maybe. So he's going to get his saves, but he's not been the pitcher this year that he was with the Brewers. He was not someone that I ever said drafted his current cost. And anyone that made that decision is lost because everyone ahead of him, every single player ahead of him or except for maybe Emmanuel Clase in some leagues, all of them were taken after him. No one ever wanted Kenley Jansen, Clay Holmes, Robert Suarez. We weren't even sure he was going to be the closer when the year started. Craig Kimbrel, there was all kinds of concerns. Finnegan, Josh Hader has been a miss. And the ratios say it, and the save total says it based upon that cost. Emmanuel Clase, as wrong as I was about Doval, I also was wrong about Clase. I anticipated Clase potentially struggling, because let's not forget, and I said this a lot in the preseason, his strikeout rate went down like 7% last year, which is a massive drop. Not just did the percentage go down 7%, he had 21 losses and blown saves. 21 losses and blown saves last year, which is catastrophically bad. Catastrophically bad. I'm just talking about, the situation with Josh Hader being bad. He's got 6 losses and blown saves. Hader's got 6 of those. Clase this year has gotten 4. He had 21 last year. Catastrophic. So comes into this year, the strikeout rate is a little bit better than last year. Still not back to where it was. It's a little bit better. Okay. He's got 4 victories. He's got 29 saves. His ERA is 0.8. His whip is like 0.7. He's been special. So I was not right about that. Same time, the ratios obviously are artificially low. And, there still aren't the strikeouts. But he's proven, as he's on his pace for a 3rd straight season of 40 saves, he has proven that he's just getting the job done. Whether his hair is pink or red or blue or whatever the heck he's doing, he gets it done. But 21 losses and blown saves last year. Duran, who's missed time this season. Duran has been effective. The issue for Duran is that he missed all that time with the oblique issue. When he's come back, his velocity is way down. Now, he throws his fastball 99 or 100, so to say his velocity is down is stupid, but it's true. There was a series where I think Aaron Gleeman wrote about it a couple of weeks ago. Like, everything with Duran is down, and it's not even like everything. And we're talking multiple miles per hour here. And they can't figure out what's going on. He says he's healthy. There's nothing physically wrong with him that they can't figure this out. And, at the end, he's been very effective. His ERA is in the 2s. He's got, he has 5 victories. He's got 15 saves, which is pretty good. 5 victories, 15 saves, only thrown 30 innings. He's got 19 solds. His teammate, Griffin Jax, has got 22 solds. And his teammate, Griffin Jax, has actually pitched better. So if you're in a solds league, the better performer is Griffin Jax, and it's not very close. Even if you're in a saves league, a traditional setup, Jax still has 7 saves. He's got 3 victories. His ERA is 1.9. He's pitched really well, and he's one of those middle relievers that you probably added when Duran got hurt, right? And depending on your league, maybe you paid a little bit, maybe you paid a lot, but he has absolutely lived up to expectations. He's just outside he's actually tied for 10th in solds, and again, he's got 7 saves in the ERA in the 1s. He's been really good. Duran, I've always marveled how anyone hit Duran. I mean, the guy throws 103, or used to throw 103 miles an hour. If he's throwing 100 versus 103, that is definitely something to watch. Again, they say he's healthy, but we just can't figure out what happened to the lost velocity. With the Phillies, we've got a scenario where everyone was talking about Jose Alvarado kind of as the lead guy there. Made a lot of sense. Totally get it. All of a sudden, though, Mr. Hoffman, Mr. All-Star, is blazing away. You've got 13 saves for Alvarado. You've got 9 saves for Hoffman. Hoffman has been special He's got 9 saves. He's got 12 holds. That's 21 sold. So he's just outside the top 10 there. Alvarado, by the way, has got 19 solds. But Hoffman's, got huge numbers across the board, including an ERA that's 1.12. He has been terrific. Another middle reliever, another guy that you added and thought maybe I can get a handful of victories. He's got 3 of them. Maybe I can get a handful of saves. He's got 9, and there's a legitimate chance based upon usage of late that Jeff Hoffman actually ends up leading the Phillies in saves this year. He's coming on strong, and he's been really, really good. Now, the Tigers have one of those scenarios where there was a change, and the change was Alex Lange, who I think had 6 saves last year, was supposed to be the guy this year. He struggled early on, and he was demoted quickly from the role. I think they even sent him to the minors at some point, right, if I remember right. Jason Foley took over. Jason Foley's throwing 100 miles an hour. Everyone's excited about Jason Foley. And right now, let's be fair to Jason Foley. He's got 15 saves. Now, he's blown 3 games. He's got 3 losses. Area is 3.5. His performance has slowed as the innings have piled up. And his stuff is down a little bit from where it was early in their season. So there's still some uncertainty whether Foley indeed is going to be the guy all year long for the Tigers. Can he get to the 25 save level? Yes. But it's not as certain that that's going to happen as it appeared to be 2 months ago. But overall, he's obviously been a very good pickup. The next guy, Kirby Yates, has been one of the better pickups in the relief situation for the entire league. He's got 3 victories. He's got 16 saves. And oh, by the way, his ERA is 1.05. You really can't pitch much better than this, especially for an older player that's, hasn't closed in years. But he's gotten the opportunity with the Rangers after, Leclerc and Robertson and everything. Yates was not the guy anyone was talking about. He was 3rd on the list, maybe 4th even for this team. And here we are with him authoring it to date, one of the best relief seasons in baseball off the waiver wire. Carlos Estevez. Carlos Estevez is somebody that was drafted late. No one liked the skills tremendously. No one thought, he's a great bet for 30 saves again. It's like, all right, I need some saves. I'll take Carlos Estevez in the 23rd round. That's what you did, right? He's got 17 saves. He's 17 for 20. His ERA is 2.6, and we thought that ERA could be 4.6, so seeing it at 2.6 is really nice. Estevez, frankly, is kind of just a guy who's working the 9th inning. If he's traded, and there's a lot of rumors that the Angels could trade him, if he's traded, he almost certainly becomes a setup man. And as a setup man, his value vanishes. So what do the Angels do if they do make the move? We're hearing rumblings of Ben Joyce taking over the 9th inning. Makes all the sense in the world. Ben Joyce throws 100 miles an hour. He's drafted and, to be a guy that has a high leverage role. And I want to put him in the 9th inning. Makes sense to me. We talked about this earlier in the week. If you're looking to make a move in the bullpen, get Ben Joyce now. Doesn't mean that the Estevez is getting traded for sure. Doesn't mean if they trade Estevez that it's going to be solely Ben Joyce. It could be a couple of guys there with the Angels. We don't know. Hell, they could put Ben Joyce in the starting rotation. We don't know what they're going to do. But Ben Joyce would be my add now with the expectation / hope that at the trade deadline, maybe he moves into a more significant role. Mr. Finnegan, we've talked about him a lot on the show. He's got 25 saves. He's on his way to surpassing his total of 28 from last year. He's on his way to his first 30-save season. Been great. Hunter and Harvey got traded. So there's a chance that the Nationals, who traded Harvey and who, demoted Meneses and who let go Nick Senzel, who's with the White Sox now, they're making all these moves. It's very possible that Finnegan gets traded as a left-handed reliever that doesn't dominate. If Finnegan gets traded, reasonable to expect him to be in a shared 9th inning situation with his new team or outright just as uses a setup man. With Harvey gone, he would have been the natural pivot to take over the 9th inning for the Nationals. I made the call, whether it's right or wrong. Dylan Floro. Now, Dylan Floro could be traded too. So, and it's not clear at all if Finnegan's going to get traded or if he does, this team would go with one guy in the 9th inning. I think Dylan Floro is the best bet if you want to get really proactive and take a shot, shoot your shot, shoot it with Dylan Floro. We'll see if that plays out that way or not. Mr. McArthur, James McArthur of the Royals, had a good second half last year, and there were people that were drafting him at the end of drafts. Whether he was going to lead this team in saves or not was totally unclear. I planted the flag with Will Smith, thinking the veteran would find his way to 20 saves and lead this team in saves. I said, hey, ideally you want to draft Smith and McArthur. That was my position. Smith has been awful. He hasn't had any opportunity to work the ninth inning, and he hasn't deserved it. Meanwhile, McArthur, McArthur's been effective. He's got 4 victories. He's got 17 saves. The ratios aren't great. He's not a big strikeout guy, but he's working the ninth inning and doing a very good job. He's had some hiccups and setbacks in season, but he's rebounded from that, which is obviously, a great thing to see, because that's kind of the hallmark of a team trusting you, is when you struggle, they kind of stick with you and you pull through the other end. They don't have an obvious pivot away from him at this point. It is James McArthur's job. So he looks like he's on his way to one of those kind of messy-ish 30-save seasons that doesn't really do much for you, but it gets you the saves, and that's really, at the end of the day, what we're talking about. Robert Suarez of the Padres, the Padres were making moves. They made multiple moves to bring in pitchers from across the sea. They had De Los Santos around. Like Robert Suarez, we all knew he'd be in the mix for saves, but he was not, when I released my reliever rankings, he was not the guy that I said to get. It became more evident that was the way it was going to be. So I think whether you drafted Suarez or not came down to when your draft was. If your draft was in January, you probably didn't. If your draft was in March, I hope you did, because he's been great. And even if he was the guy in the ninth inning, as he's become for the Padres, I don't think anyone was expecting this. He's got 4 victories. He's got 22 saves. He's 22 for 24. ERA is under 1.7. He's been great. He really has been great. And again, if you look at this leaderboard here, I mean, Helsley was expected to have 30 saves this year. Clase was expected to get 30 saves. Finnegan wasn't. He's got 25. I don't think Kimbrel was, and he's got 23. And Robert Suarez, we were hoping for 12. He's already got 22. Like, the top of this leaderboard got some kind of out-of-nowhere guys, and Suarez is kind of the epitome of that. Just think if you had taken Finnegan in the 23rd round and Suarez in the 27th round. Don't always have to take those closers early. Mason Miller has been terrific. Mason Miller, as he noted, will be the last Oakland A in the All-Star game ever. They're going to become the Sacramento A's, or whatever the hell they're going to call them. Miller also, when talking at the All-Star break and the event and everything, basically said he still wants to start, which I think is a better use of his talent. If he can get through this season healthy and prove that physically he can handle this, I could see a team acquiring Miller to make him a closer or to make him a starter. With the Athletics, his talent, in my opinion, is wasted as a ninth inning guy. Like, what are you doing, right? Like, they're just trying to keep him healthy and get him through the year. And I guess there's a chance they could trade him, right? They can get pieces back. But I'd really love to see Mason Miller get an opportunity to be a starting pitcher. As a reliever this year, he's been utterly dominant. The near 50% strikeout rate, the 15 saves. He's been terrific. Flat out, he's been terrific. Trevor, Megill, Devin Williams in the last situation we're going to talk about before we visit with Armando Marsal. Devin Williams, hurt his back. He's expected to return in very short order. I think there was a question yesterday. Someone asked, what do we do? And I said, add this guy. You absolutely want to add him. And add him right now if he's available, because there's very reasonable expectation he's back within a week or so, that he's going to be the guy working the ninth inning for the Brewers. Remember, we thought Piamps might emerge. Abner Uribe emerged for a while, and then he was gone. Who's the other guy? I'm drawing a blank right now. Like, Megill was like the 4th guy, and he has emerged and been terrific. Like, just terrific. He has pitched almost as well as Devin Williams would have been expected to pitch. Like, Trevor Megill has been a dynamic addition. And then again, off the waiver wire, and this happens every year. And, again, he's likely to set up for Devin Williams for the most part in the second half. I'm sure he'll still get some saves. He'll probably fill a Griffin Jacks kind of role, and getting, those odd saves while pitching very well as a setup role. Devin Williams will be back soon. To date, Trevor Megill has been absolutely special. There you go. Okay. So that's the baseball talk. Remember, leave your comments. We'll get to those at the end of the show. Before we get to that, it's time to talk some football, as we do every Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday here on Fantasy Sports Daily. About a half hour into the show, we talk football. Normally, Armando Marsal's on Wednesdays, Tyler Beaker's on Thursdays, and Russell Clay's on Fridays. This week, we're going to change order up a little bit. Russell will still be on Fridays. Yesterday was Tyler, which means, that's right, today it's Armando Marsal. So let's bring in Armando Marsal of fantasyguru.com. Armando, you're very little. Let's make you very big.
There we go.
How you doing today, Armando?
I'm doing well, Ray. Excited to be here talking football. As I said before, this is one of my favorite times of the week. Thank you both and Tyler for making the changes and accommodating. I had some things going on yesterday I had to take care of, but happy to be here today talking some football, right? I know sometimes it's slow at this time of the year, but not for us. We're always talking football. We always find, things to talk about, things to discuss. I think there's a lot to discuss here today.
Yeah, there's always things to discuss, and along those lines, you're always putting out articles and such. Talk to the folks about what you just recently released yesterday. Things were coming out for you.
Yeah, so this week we launched the league setups series. That's something I do each and every year. I just posted right before hopping on here the standard league format. I've done PPR, half PPR. We're going to do 14 team. I'm going to do all different types of setups. And then yesterday, the auction draft book, the 2024 auction draft book is officially live. The half PPR one. We still have one for Superflex and one for tight end premium that'll be out in August. But been asked a lot about this auction draft book. So you know what? I've been working hard on it behind the scenes and finally was able to get it up yesterday and posting it. So I'll be updating that regularly, with news and stuff like that. And I'm sure we're going to be discussing some of these players that are in that auction book here today in this segment.
Yeah, and that's I know everyone loves that. We have it in baseball, of course, too. It's a lot of work because it's got to be done manually. Like people, one guy gets hurt. Well, you don't just put a guy in. Now I have to shift around a bunch. So it's a lot of work. I always hate doing that, if we're being honest, because it's a lot, especially in baseball. Yeah. One guy in the 9th round is out. And now I got to adjust 200 players. So I wish you well with that, Armando. I know you're doing God's work, as they say. But people enjoy it. So I'm glad and like you said, it's great that you, Russell, and Tyler are all doing different formats. So we've got the PPR, non-PPR rankings kind of highlighted at the top of the page, but then we have these other options for people to get rankings for their different setups as well.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And, we have the PPR rankings. We have, like you mentioned, the standard scoring. And then we don't have PPR, but if you read the articles, it plays very similar to, half PPR, very similar. But we got those rankings up now. And, the auction draft book is geared towards half PPR there. So we're going to have different formats, which is just good because there's so many different formats nowadays, Ray, that, we need all of these different rankings.
Yeah, Jeff always tells me there's more in baseball. I'm not buying it. There's more in football. There's more in football.
Well, is it? So I was going to give you props. Like, I'll do really good in my baseball league, by the way. Thanks to you. Thanks to your content. I'm sitting in 3rd place with we do record and winning percentage. So I have a 536 winning percentage, 3rd best in the league. Pretty good there. But your content's been gold. But isn't there only 2 formats? Maybe I'm wrong there. Isn't there only 2 formats in baseball?
There are 2 main formats, right? There's roto and points. There's 2 main formats. But, some leagues, it's 10 points for a win. Some it's 7. Some it's 5. So there's variation there.
Okay.
But, yeah, it's pretty standard. In football, it's like this league is 0.2. This league is 0.4. This league is 1.1. This league – oh, wait, tight ends are different than the running backs. The running backs are different than and Jeff argues with me all the time. I'm like, Jeff, you're full of it. Let's talk a little bit about some of these players, Armando, and thanks for the props. I appreciate that. A guy that, Jordan Addison, like, oh boy, here we go. There's, young guys with money make bad decisions all the time. Suspicion of DUI. We're still trying to get clarity. Was it drug related? Was it alcohol? What's going on? Parking a car on the freeway or whatever the hell it was. Talk to us about what your expectations are for Jordan Addison on the field in the Vikings offense, and what, without knowing anything, this is another one of those scenarios where the NFL usually suspends guys when things like this happen, anywhere from 2 to 4 games. So talk us through your expectations now with Jordan Addison for 2024.
So I was a little bit bearish on Addison as it was because of the quarterback situation there in Minnesota. For me, this kind of, makes things a little bit worse, right? It's just the outlook isn't as promising. I like the talent, I like the player, but the quarterback situation is there. Now we have this. I think if I'm not mistaken, Addison was also, pulled over once for speeding at I think it was over 120 miles an hour, I think. So this might be the second offense there for Addison. So look, we don't know how the NFL is going to react. Like you mentioned, it's very unpredictable. Some people get 2 games, some players get 6 games. It's so random how they handle it. There's not like a set thing. I don't think they have a written rule that says if you do this, you get this many games. It's not there. Right. It's whatever the commissioner's feeling that day. So that's kind of what we have to expect here. I'm viewing Addison right now as a wide receiver 4, low-end wide receiver 4. I have him, I think it was wide receiver 47 or 46 in the draft book. That's where he's at for me. So that's where I'm viewing him. If he is going to miss some time, we're going to have to drop him a little bit lower there, I think. Not someone I want to rely on a week-to-week basis. I like the talent. I just need that quarterback situation to kind of figure itself out there in Minnesota before I could really trust Addison.
One of the best names for a beat writer in all of football is D. Orlando Ledbetter. He writes for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Yes. It's a great name. And, he wrote an article, and this is, you're mentioning the kind of slow time. So, like, people are hanging on beat reporters' words. Like, anything a beat reporter says, it flashes through the entire fantasy space. And D. Orlando Ledbetter said that, hey, look, Kyle Pitts is going to play tight end and wide receiver. Woo! Let's go, Kyle Pitts. Everyone is kind of looking at Kyle Pitts and saying it's going to be better, right? The setup is just better now than it has been. Different scheme, different quarterback, all that kind of stuff. Give us some statistical numbers, milestones for Kyle Pitts. Are you expecting 70 catches? Are you expecting 7 touchdowns? Like, talk us through that piece of, because everyone expects again to be better than he was last year. But what does that actually mean?
Yeah, so if we go back to his rookie campaign, he caught 68 passes for 1,026 yards, 1 touchdown. That was the big issue with his rookie campaign because overall was a really solid and strong campaign. He was one of 2 tight ends in NFL history to go over 1,000 yards as a rookie. So I'm expecting those kind of numbers, Ray, right? Like I'm expecting, you mentioned, I think you hit it right on the nose, right? Like about 70 catches. I think you could project them for over 1,000 yards. Now, this is the big, I think we're going to see a lot of positive regression in the touchdown department. He has 6 career touchdown passes. He had 1 as a rookie, 2 his second year, 3 last year, right? A total of 6. I think we're going to see a handful of touchdowns this season alone. I think he's going to set a record for his touchdowns. I think over 1,000 yards is very reasonable. This is, like you mentioned, the best situation he's been in as far as the quarterback concerned. Like it's either going to be Cousins or Penix Jr., whoever it is, it's the best quarterback he's played with. So for me, I'm expecting over 1,000 yards. I'm expecting a floor of 60, 70 catches, give or take. And I do think the touchdowns, they're going to be there for him this year. I think that we're going to see more touchdowns than he scored in a regular season since entering the NFL. So the highest he's had is 3, and that was last year. I think he's going to pick up from there and maybe get the handful of touchdowns, 6 touchdowns. I think that's very reasonable for Pitts here.
Now, I'm just a stupid guy wearing a Costco Kirkland t-shirt, all right? I don't know anything. But when a guy's 6'6", 250, and he comes out of college as, the great, like, how hard – throw the ball to him in the red zone. Like, how hard is this? I don't – like, sometimes I look at these things, it's like, guys, I know we got X's and Y. Just throw the ball to the guy who's physically dominant. Like, the guy guarding him is 6'2", and he's supposed to be like the greatest athlete the tight end position's ever seen. Just throw him the damn football, Armando.
Well, when you got a quarterback that can't go through his progressions or can't get the reads, or,
That's fair.
I think that plays a huge role. But yeah, no, I agree. I think it should be like, hey, you get inside the 10-yard line, inside the 20-yard line, be like, hey, look, just toss it up. He's going to get it. I mean, he has to get it. If you toss it up 10 times, he gets it 6 times, I think.
Yeah, we in my dynasty league where we have 50 roster spots, 16 teams, 50 roster spots. Desmond Ridder was put on waivers. Like it was just we're not even holding him, and he's not even my third, fourth quarterback. We're just out. Let's move on from that team to a situation that's closer to you in Miami. We have got a scenario where the backfield of the Dolphins was uber productive last year on a per game basis. No one was better than Achane. Mostert led the league in touchdowns. Like, it was fantastic. They draft Jalen Wright. So now there's 3 guys in the mix. How are you handling this situation? Because Mike McDaniel was recently talking about this, and he said, we got a great group. Let's go. Like, he didn't give any, like, this guy versus that guy. I know that you and Ted Schuster did the O-line article. There's a lot of changes on the offensive line for the Dolphins. It's not necessarily good changes compared to last season. What is the backfield going to look like, in your opinion, with Miami? And should we be excited about this scenario or not?
So, look, I like Achane more than most people, right? I think he's explosive, but let's be real. He is the type of running back that cannot handle 20-plus opportunities per game. He just cannot handle that. Like, he's not built for that. He's handled, and I said it last year, 12 to 15, I think, is that magic number. Can he do damage with 12 to 15? Absolutely. Over a long period of time, is that going to result into consistent production each and every time? I don't think so. I think there's going to be some ups and downs with a player that's only getting 12 to 15 opportunities per game, especially this year. The offensive line is much worse than what it was last year. They lost a lot of key pieces. They, kind of tried to structure things together. But again, it's not what it was last year. It's worse than what it was. We know Armstead has a lot of issues staying on the field. Like, durability is a massive red flag when it comes to Armstead. He's a huge part of what this offensive line does. And I posted the numbers. Are significant drop-offs with him on the field and off the field. So his, availability is going to mean a lot here for this running game. last year we saw, look, so 140 opportunities for Achane. We had 241 opportunities for Mostert. We saw 57% snap share for Mostert, 43% snap share for Achane. Full-blown committee, right? Like Achane was just their explosive guy. They both missed some time. And I think when it comes to, the rookie here, when you're looking at, I think we could see a full-blown committee again, right? Mostert, durability could be a concern. Achane, if you're giving him too many touches, I think durability is going to be a concern. So I do think that we're going to see a committee here, right, where they're going to start off with Mostert, Achane, and eventually I think Wright will get some opportunities here. If I'm investing here, Achane is the guy I want to invest in because I do think he has obviously the more upside. I think he's going to get the better opportunities here. But I like taking late round, picks with Wright. I've been doing it in my best ball leagues, and I think I'm going to continue doing so just because the two running backs in front of him, Mostert, we've seen it even when he was in San Francisco. Durability was an issue. He's getting up there in age, coming off a season where he had a lot of opportunities. So again, I think there's some red flags, and we're seeing it in his ADP, right? I think everyone's seeing it. His ADP is really low for a running back who scored as many touchdowns he did last year. I think his ADP is very low. So I think we're going to see a committee here. We saw it. It worked last year. That's what they're going to do. And it's what we should expect here in 2024.
Morning, Marcel Ray Flowers here on Fantasy Sports Daily. You look at the Bills, and we all know Stephon Diggs is gone, Gabe Davis is gone, all these vacated targets. They had Keon Coleman, who everyone's excited about, but again, he's a rookie. Curtis Samuel is also added here, and Samuel can obviously do a lot of things. Short, long, backfield, like he's one of these guys that can be a gadget player if you want him to be. And he ends up, at the end of the day, producing kind of more than you think, right? Because he's just involved. His ADP at the NFFC is about 55 or something like that at the wide receiver position. I'm at that price point willing to take chances in Curtis Samuel all day long. What are your thoughts with Curtis Samuel now that he's with the Bills?
I couldn't agree more with you. I have him wide. So I went and looked exactly where I had him because I wanted to know. I have him at wide receiver 46 on the draft book. That's a half PPR. He reunites with Joe Brady, right? Where he played with Carolina, had one of his better seasons. I think they're going to utilize him here. And like you mentioned, I mean, look, they lost Stephon Diggs. They lost Gabe Davis. There's a lot of opportunities up for grabs here. I like Keon Coleman a lot. I've been very, very, very open about that. I think he's going to emerge as their top pass catcher, but they're still going to need production from other receivers. I think Curtis Samuel is a very interesting pick at his price point because he's going to be utilized in multiple ways. Not only as a pass catcher, he can run the football. We've seen it, right? Like he can line up outside in the slot. Like he goes all over he's a gadget player that they're going to use. He's been utilized in this offense before, right? With Joe Brady in Carolina. So I like him. I agree with you at that 55, a wide receiver 55 price. I'm taking all the shares I can here of Curtis Samuel. Don't think you're going to be, miss out all that much by taking him there.
In a lot of scenarios, we end up with wide receiver twos who we're really excited about, right? T. Higgins with the Bengals, Devonta Smith with the Eagles, Nico Collins with the Texans. There's a lot of scenarios across the league where that second receiver is not just a guy we want to draft. Like that's a guy we're playing every week. In the case of the Steelers, like they're changing everything, right? New OC, new quarterback. It looks like they got Roman Wilson in, but it looks like the number 2 to start the year is Van Jefferson, who, is a solid NFL player. He's been around, all that kind of stuff. Is Van Jefferson even draftable? Like again, logically, he's number 2 receiver on his team. Yeah. But is there going to be enough passing? And is Van Jefferson someone that could step into that void and have success?
So I like Jefferson. I'm a Jefferson, ever since he's entered the NFL, I've always liked Jefferson. I don't like this situation, right? You mentioned a lot of these receivers, Higgins, Collins, Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle. But these are players in high passing offenses, like high volume passing offenses, high octane offenses. I don't think that's going to be the case here at the Steelers, right? I think this is a team that we know where they come from. They're going to try to run the football. They're going to try to, they're going to play physical style football. And in the passing game, is Jefferson going to have a couple of big games here and there? Maybe. But is he someone I want to rely on a week-to-week basis? No. I've actually been taking shots on Roman Wilson, like you said, deeper in best ball drafts. And again, he's someone that even in redraft leagues where you're, setting your lineups each and every week, I don't think he's going to produce consistent numbers each and every week. So for me, I tend to avoid those kind of players, especially when they're not in high octane offenses. If you're looking at Arizona, where you have Michael Wilson, Zay Jones, all right, maybe one of those. But here, this is a team that I think they're going to, depend on their defense. The Steelers have one of the best defenses in football, and they're going to run in between the tackles, whether it's Harris or Warren. They're going to run the football here. And then it's going to be Pickens and Freiermuth, I think, in the passing game the majority of the time. So I don't want to invest too much in Jefferson in very deep leagues like the one you're just in that you just mentioned, 50-spot roster. Of course, he's going to be rostered, right? Yes, because he's the number 2. But am I expecting a ton of volume for Jefferson just because he's the number 2 receiver on that team? No, not necessarily.
Well, let's go back to the team we were talking about earlier. We were talking about Kyle Pitts. When you talk about the Falcons, it's Cousins, it's Pitts, it's Bijan, it's Drake London. Okay. Let's go a little bit deeper at their wide receiver position too, because everyone's expecting them to have success throwing the ball. It's a little different because if Pitts is catching 70 passes, he's kind of their de facto number 2 pass catcher. Then Bijan Robinson, maybe he's getting 60, 70. Okay. We just saw him in my Scott Fishbowl League get drafted, and him being Darnell Mooney went with the last pick of the 19th round. Darnell Mooney, Rondale Moore seem to be the next guy up behind Drake London at the wide receiver position. You're kind of smirking like, I don't want anything to do with either one of these guys. Is that, am I reading that correctly, Armando?
Yeah, you are. I mean, look, if you're going to take any shots, I think you just said it best, right? It's Scott Fishbowl, a very deep league, 19th round, 12 teams, very unique scoring. I think in a league like that where you're going 20 rounds, okay, you take some shots on Mooney. I think we know what he is, though, right? He's not a consistent receiver, right? And for me, you want to sprinkle some of those kind of receivers into your roster, into your receiving wide receiver build, but you don't want to have too many of them, right? So it really depends on the rest of your receivers. If you have a lot of high floor receivers, especially, I think Curtis Samuels has a relatively safe floor. Like if you take him and have him on your bench and you want to sprinkle in a Mooney with one of your last picks, okay, because now you have one that, maybe could give you 10 PPR points on a regular basis, and you have that one that's going to give you 2 or maybe 15, right? So I think it depends on your wide receiver depth chart on your fantasy rosters and how you want to approach it. So Mooney is not someone that's going to give you high-end production on a week-to-week basis. I think there's going to be a couple of peak weeks here. He's going to be able to stretch the field. There's going to be blown coverages. There's going to be times that he gets behind the defense and Kirk Cousins or Penix gets in the ball, whatever the case may be. But the point is that consistent production, I don't think you're going to get it from Mooney or even more, unless there's a couple of injuries, on this lineup, and then they're going to get more opportunities. But other than that, I think it's just going to be some peak weeks. And when you're setting up your lineups, those are frustrating players to have, because then they have a big week. You then want to play them the next week, then they give you a 0. I tend to avoid that situation as much as possible in redraft leagues.
A final scenario to ask you about, we both mentioned this in passing, this team. If you look at the NFFC's ADP in the month of July, you see 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 teammates at the wide receiver position inside the top 30. Obviously, Collins, Diggs, and Tank Dell. I mean, I get it, but I don't get it. Like, if all 3 of those guys are, I think Dell was 28th when I looked last. Like, if all 3 of those guys are top 30, doesn't that mean that CJ Stroud is throwing for 4,500 yards and 35 touchdowns? Like, talk us through the idea of having 3 receivers in the top 30, and then secondarily, what your expectations are for the entirety of the receiving core with the Texans.
Yeah, I mean, it's mind-boggling because so I have Dell outside of my top 30, not far, but I have him outside of my top 30 in my rankings. I do think that all 3 of them are going to easily be top 40. I think Stroud should be treated as a top 3 quarterback, right? I think that's the thing. I think he should be treated as a top 3 quarterback, potentially top 2 if you're really that aggressive with these receivers. Do I think that all 3 of them are going to be top 30? I think that's very difficult. I think it's going to be Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs. I think Tank Dell is going to give you some big weeks. But we tend to forget they also had a Joe Mixon, so they have a really good running back. They also have Dalton Schultz, another very good pass catcher, who had a very good season with the Texans last year in his first season with the team, and build chemistry with CJ Stroud. So for me, I don't know if he's going to have 3 top 30 receivers. I think you could make the case for 3 top 40 receivers and a top 10 tight end. And if that's the case, if you're really looking at it that way, you have to treat CJ Stroud as a top 5, 4, even 3 quarterback. I think I have him at my QB4 in my rankings. And really the only difference between him and, some of the other guys ahead of him are the rushing upside. And I think that's really what sets him apart, because we talked about Josh Allen. We talked about Jalen Hurts before. And both of these quarterbacks have double-digit touchdown rushing upside, right? And I think that's what makes it different. And maybe that's why C.J. Stroud is not ranked higher, or maybe that's not why he's being taken higher, because of that rushing upside. But can he throw for 4,000 plus yards and 40 plus touchdowns this season? I think he can. Is that going to result in him being as QB1? It could be, but I definitely think it would result as a top 3 quarterback with those kind of numbers. For me, Radel, top 30 each of them. It's very difficult. We've had this conversation before, like when Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill were top 12 each, and then Tua was being taken as QB 18. Those kind of things don't make sense, right? It just doesn't make sense to me when the market is treating players like that way. If you really think that 2 players are going to be top 12 at their position, you have to rank that quarterback a little bit higher, in ADP. So I agree with you. I think if everyone's taking Dell, Collins, and Diggs as a top 30 receiver, I think those same people should be taking C.J. Stroud as a top 2-3 quarterback.
I think it's interesting too, in a different year and scenarios and all of that. But he made 15. He played 15 games last year. Did C.J. Stroud, and 6 of those games he threw 28 or fewer passes. And over half the games he started, 8 of 15, it was 30 or fewer pass attempts. This is not an offense where they plan to speed things up and let's go run and shoot and throw the ball 42 times a week, which is another thing. It's, these guys better be catching every single target they get, because if they're throwing 31 passes and 5 of them are going to Mixon and 9 of them are going to Diggs and 8 of them are going to Collins and 7 of them are going to Dell, I mean, no other person on this team is getting a target. Like it's tight. It's just tight. And the listeners can, read the articles. They can listen to our advice here on the show. They can check the rankings out, make the decision for themselves. But to me, it's tight. I don't know. Injuries obviously are the great differentiator there, but it's tight. Okay, so thanks for your visit today, Armando. Really appreciate you coming on. You're always working on something. What's the next something that's going to be coming out over at fantasyguru.com?
Well, the league setup series continues. It'll continue next week. I'm going to try to cover every single league setup. If anyone has any request of a specific league setup they want me to cover, send me a DM on Discord or just reach out to me and I'll cover that. I'm still working on the target shares. That's going to be August 1st. That's going to be out August 1st. Target shares. It's basically all of the, where the quarterbacks are throwing, receiver, running back, tight end, wherever they're throwing the football, all of that. It's a big spreadsheet that I do each and every year. The keeper tools, that should be updated. I'll double check with Rusty, but that should be updated. All the data and all that stuff is already behind the scenes. It's already submitted. So I think it's just updating a couple of things. So that should be live if it's not already. And Drafters Best Ball, I'll be continuing to put out content. Mind the Marsal podcast this week. I'll be doing a roundtable with our guys, Russell Clay and Tyler Beaker. We're going to be talking about that. Some football and we talk some cards as well. We've been talking about some cards and collecting cards and stuff like that. So it'll be a fun podcast there. But like always, man, just a ton of work and a ton of things. Oh, and I can't leave without saying our 20 podcasts in 20 days launches next week. Starts off next week. It starts Monday. So keep an eye out for those. Each and every one of us, you and I will be doing a few together. The staff will be doing a few together. So it'll be a fun one.
He's Armando Marsal. I'm Ray Flowers. As he noted, we're doing a group of 20 podcasts for the preseason draft guide. If you sign up for the seasonal package, you get all of that through the season. It's not just preseason. It's through the entire year. So you get all of that. Armando's also on. He didn't mention the live stream that he's on every Tuesday. They often do drafts and talk about what they're doing there on the live stream. He's always in Discord. You can follow him at Armando_Marsal on Twitter X. You can go to fantasyguru.com, click that Elite Plus tab at the top of the page. You can find this show, Fantasy Sports Daily. You can find his Mind of Marsal podcast. You can find Basketball Diaries. You can find One Man's Opinion. You can find the Fantasy Guru Race Hour, all the podcasts there. Again, Elite Plus at the top of the page. Armando, thanks for joining us today. As people, by the way, one last thing, he mentioned Drafters. You can see it on the screen there. If you're a returning Drafters.com customer, use the promo code ELITE10. You get a 10% bonus match, ELITE10. If you're new to Drafters and you've never signed up or been a part of what they do over there, use the promo code ELITE. That gets you a 100% match. Get an opportunity to play some best ball. We've got a whole section of best ball articles in the preseason draft guide that you have access to if you sign up at fantasyguru.com to win part of millions and millions of dollars over at drafters.com. So, Armando, thanks for your visit today. We appreciate it, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Yes, sir. Thanks so much for having me on, and have a great day, everyone.
You got it. Thank you to Armando Marsal. Okay, let's finish out strong here. Tomorrow, by the way, Russell Clay will be on. We mentioned that earlier. He'll wrap up the week talking football. We'll get back to some baseball news. For anyone that's missed it, Monday we did infield, Tuesday we did outfield, Wednesday we did starting pitcher, today's we did relief pitchers. All those shows are cataloged at eliteplus.com. You know, you can go to fantasyguru.com at the top, Elite Plus. You can go to youtube.com/ElitePlus Network, find the shows there as well. All the shows are cataloged, and over at fantasyguru.com, the articles that accompany the show here. So every position we did, infield, outfield, starting pitcher, relief pitcher, there's also an article with some more information to check that out at the website. And again, subscribe tab in the top right corner to sign up for the product over at fantasyguru.com. A final comment to get to with Angelo. Jason Adam has done me well, and we get points for holds. Yeah, Jason Adam, as we talked about in the preseason, if you're going to draft Pete Fairbanks, and he has dealt with some injuries this year, I said all along, draft Jason Adam too. Like, get both those guys. You could easily do that. You know, you take Fairbanks in the 17th round, you take Jason Adam in the 29th round. You got both those guys. You feel good about the 9th inning. Adam is not a dominating guy. He's got basically a strikeout an inning, but his ERA is 1.7. His WHIP is 0.8, and he has 4 saves and 18 holds. So he has pitched exactly as expected. Got a chance to get those 10 saves this year, which is also a nice bonus for everybody out there that took the dive. Okay, we'll be back tomorrow here again, Monday through Friday on Fantasy Sports Daily at 12 o'clock Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Time. Talking sports, taking your comments, questions, having some fun. Tomorrow, the baseball games get going again, so we will get a little bit more into some news and notes, talk a little bit about some of the rotations, kind of how they're lining up. Did you see the news with Garrett Crochet, who threw 2 innings his last outing? Not going to pitch this weekend. He's going to pitch next week. So it begins in the second half with the monitoring of workloads for pitchers. So we'll get into some of that more tomorrow. Again, fantasyguru.com. Click that subscribe tab, top right corner. Join us, get access to everything we do. We'll be happy to share the wealth of knowledge that the staff has with you if you sign up at fantasyguru.com. For Armando Marsal, I'm Ray Flowers. This has been Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by fantasyguru.com.